Let me ask you this. I mean, I mentioned before that you spent time with Congressman McCarthy and Hoyer. I assume these meetings were off the record as far as what they told you, but I'm wondering if there is any sort of overriding advice that they gave you, or what kinds of questions you asked them.
Well, look, I've been around Washington politics for a long time, over many, many years, and so I've been around it. I've seen a lot of it, but I was specifically interested in what is it like to be in a position where you have to try to corral 218 congressmen in a particular way, to try to get them to vote in a particular way, to try to get them to go in a particular direction, and how remarkably difficult that is. Particularly, I suppose, if you look at a guy like McCarthy, you know, when he rose to power. I mean, his rise to becoming the majority whip, I think, happened faster than anyone in the history of Congress. He did it in about 4 years. He also came in at that time when a huge amount of new congressmen were elected, in many cases on the heels of the Tea Party, and having come to Washington with a kind of promise that they were going to change politics, and they weren't going to do it the way that Washington does it. So very, very tough position for a guy like him to be in. And it was, for me, very fascinating. He invited me to a whip meeting, which was an incredible thing to be able to sit and listen to and be a part of. And I was really interested in the mechanics of it. How many deputy whips do you have? How many times do you go and meet your all of those? How much does your staff do all of that work? At what point do you try to close things? How many times do you fly back to your own district? All of these sort of, in some ways, slightly technical things, but also the sort of the interest in how much do you twist arms, and how much does that kind of thing go on. So it was very helpful for me to have spent time with both of them.
Do you feel? I mean, Kevin spent a lot of time with Steny Hoyer and Kevin McCarthy in preparing for this role. Did you spend time with any real life politicians or political spouses to prepare for this?
I didn't. David Fincher said, "I think your research subject should be a bust of a woman. I want her to be very still and calculated and thoughtful. And under the bust, under this piece of marble, is a human that will emerge." So I didn't really want to acquire attributes other than a grace and a poise with woman underneath.
And I think also the great thing about the way in which Bo and all of our team of writers have been developing the characters is, I still don't know so much about Frank. We're still discovering so many things as we go along this journey that it's kind of fun sometimes, and we have it with certain characters in the piece in the second season and the first season, where you don't know a lot about them. You don't know a lot about backstory, and in a way, I think in some ways it frees up the writing team in being able to, at some point when you decide what you're going to reveal about a character, when you're going to reveal it. I mean, in a sense, one of the great things about looking at this is in terms of chapters or telling a story over a long period of time is that characters will reveal themselves in time and with enough space for it to happen. It's one of the great things about not being in a position of having to do a pilot for the series, where you're obligated to spend 45 minutes establishing all the characters, whereas we've had this incredible luxury of being able to allow it to evolve as Bo and his team have wanted the story to measure itself out.
It must be incredibly liberating in some ways, right?
I feel like, it's funny, I in a lot of ways don't feel like we're doing a series. I feel like we're doing a really long
It's a 13-hour
film. It's the way it feels.
Truly revolutionary part of House of Cards, which is the distribution, which is, I don't know if the notion of binge viewing has been around for a while, but this is the first I've heard of it. And I think because of live streaming and technology, viewers will now have a chance to experience this in real time on their own schedule. I guess it's the next iteration of box sets. How has that affected your relationship, and I guess I'll start with Kevin, with your viewers, and just how the rhythm of a show like this proceeds when you don't know when people are going to be watching it and so
forth? I first have to say, I think that binge viewing has been around for, certainly since box sets came along. For a number of years now. You talk to anybody about what they've done on a weekend, and they say, I stayed home and I watched 2 seasons of Dexter, or I watched 3 seasons of Breaking Bad. So I do think that the way in which people have been consuming and the attention spans of audiences has definitely seems to have shifted, or at least gone beyond what many television executives ever thought audiences could have. In terms of how it shifts the way in which audiences experience something, I think that's part of the excitement of it as a platform, is that now audiences really are in control.
Right.
And in a way, I guess you could say that it's a little bit like picking up a novel now.
Mhm.
You can decide to put it down on the side table
Right.
of the bed when you want. You don't have to. You can do it in the middle of an episode. You can do it at the end of an episode.
Right.
You could watch 3 episodes. You could watch all 13. So the binging part definitely is, I guess, the people that are, I've had a lot of people stop me on the street and say, thanks, you sucked 3 days out of my life. But I think it's quite interesting and exciting for an audience to be able to be in a position now where they can decide how they want something to evolve for them.
Right. Robin?
Yeah, I had someone come up to me and say, it's like a drug, but I get to control it. It doesn't
Mhm.
control me. I don't have to call my dealer. And I was like, I think that's a bit too much
Yeah, I
info.
was
but I'm happy you like the show.
Right. Now, Bo?
No, I mean, Kevin's point about the sort of novelistic approach, not only to how we make it, but also to how it can be experienced, I think is dead on. It's why we don't actually have episode titles. We just call them chapters.
Right.
Because like a great book, you can decide to read 5 chapters at once or just one and space it out. So, I think I think when we set out to make this, we weren't necessarily trying to make a TV show at all,
Right.
or a novel, or a film. I mean, we just want to tell a great story.
I'm interested in sort of your view of sort of the political world now. Sort of we're in 2013, the world is blowing up, nothing is getting done. Do you have any overriding message or lesson that you're drawing from what you're seeing today, or where do you see the country going? I guess I'm asking Kevin Spacey.
Yeah. This is the area where at any time you start to actually talk about this sort of stuff, you come under such criticism for even opening your mouth about it. I think probably it's better that I just let the experience that I'm having in doing House of Cards speak for itself. Right. You want to take that one?
Well,
That's a good triple duck right there.
That was.
No,
I'll
but
tell you exactly where the country is going.
No, I would. The question, I mean, essentially though, House of Cards obviously draws into a national ethos right now about politics. Again, it's the mix of exhilaration and revulsion. It's endlessly compelling. I mean, I just wonder if this is a particularly cynical time, if it's a particularly hopeful time. I mean, it's hard to know, obviously, but I'm sort of where you sit, sort of on the nexus of fiction and now we're talking about the world.
Me personally, I'm an optimistic person, and I actually think the show is optimistic.
Right. How
Because,
so? Because things get done.
Well, anyone who strives, anyone who grasps for what they want, is a form of optimism. Now, the problem is that people take optimism and idealism and they want to equate the two. Idealism can be incredibly cynical in its intransigence, So, you can get into all these semantic things, but, but at the end of the day, we're watching 2 people who love each other, who are ruthless in their love and ruthless in their work, strive.
Right.
And I think that that's optimistic. Whatever you think about them on the ethical spectrum is up to you, But I think they make an argument for the ends justifying the means, and I think that they, give us something complex, compelling, and mysterious.